Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to read from the Writer's Almanac for today. I'm going to change my reading of the daily word and stuff to the current day. Why not? Um, Next thing I'm trying to get rid of the scrunch and my voice thinking before I start to talk. See if I'm doing those things. Gears and Keelers Writer's Almanac for Thursday, February 2nd, 2012. It's the birthday today of James Joyce. He was born in Dublin in 1882, who said, I quote, "The demand that I make of my reader is that he should devote his whole life to reading my works," unquote. Joyce wrote Ulysses in 1922 and Finnegan's Wake in 1939, an autobiographical novel, Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man in 1916, and a short story collection, Dubliners, in 1914, amongst other works. He was educated by Jesuits, first visited a prostitute at age 14, dropped out of medical school, and aspired to be an opera star. Sounds like a kabint to me, except he wrote. He met and fell in love with a Galway hotel maid named Nora Barnacle when he was 22 years old, and he set the action of Ulysses on the day he had his first date with Nora, June 16, 1904. It's now commemorated all over the world each year as Bloomsday, after the novel's protagonist, Leopold Bloom. Shortly after meeting Nora, he convinced her to leave Ireland with him and elope to continental Europe. He thought he'd line up a teaching job as a language instructor, but that fell through, and he ended up working at a bank in Rome for a while. They were forever impoverished and constantly relying on Joyce's brother, Stanislav, for money. They had a son, Giorgio, and after that, James and Nora slept head to foot and attempted birth control. Didn't seem to be an effective form, though, and Nora became pregnant with Lucia about a year after giving birth to Giorgio. Joyce was a doting father, liked to spoil his kids, never punished either one, and once told an interviewer, "Children must be educated by love, not punishment." Nora was famously apathetic toward her husband's writing, kind of like Denise was toward my music. Joyce worked at night and laughed so loudly at his own words that Nora would get up and tell him to stop writing and stop laughing so she could get a bit of sleep. Shortly after Ulysses, Joyce pronounced it Olysses, was published, she remarked to a fan of his, quote, "I've always told him he should give up writing and take up singing," unquote. Ulysses took 7 years of unbroken labor, which translated into 20,000 hours of work. Wow. Joyce was afraid of thunder and lightning. During electrical storms, he would hide under bed covers. He was also afraid of dogs and walked around town with rocks in his pockets in case he encountered any roaming mutts. He didn't care for the arts other than music and literature, and he had no patience for art like painting. Over his desk he kept a photograph of a statue of Penelope from Greek mythology, the wife of Odysseus, and a photograph of a man from Trieste, whom Joyce wouldn't name, but he said was the model for Leopold Bloom. On his desk he had a tiny bronze statue of a woman lying back in a chair with a cat draped over her shoulders. All of his friends told him it was ugly, but he kept it on his desk anyway. One of his Parisian friends remarked, quote, "He had not taste, only genius," unquote. Joyce liked to drink and he liked to dance. His daughter-in-law said that, quote, "liquor went to his feet, not to his head," unquote. He usually sat with his legs crossed, with the toe of one crossed again under the calf of the other. He was kind and generous to strangers, and he was known to invite waiters to join him at his table for food and drink. His friend, Sylvia Beach, proprietor of Shakespeare and Company, said that Joyce, quote, treated people invariably as his equals, whether they were writers, children, waiters, princesses, or charlatans. What anybody had to say interested him. He told me that he had never met a bore. If he arrived in a taxi, he wouldn't get out until the driver had finished saying what he was saying. Joyce himself fascinated everybody. No one resisted his charm. Unquote. James Joyce said, quote, "The artist, like the God of our creation, remains within or behind or beyond or above his handiwork, invisible, refined out of existence, indifferent, paring his fingernails." Unquote. Here's a poem by Mr. John Stone. John Stone was born in 1936 in Jackson, Mississippi. Died in 2008 in Atlanta, Georgia. He was a poet and essayist. He is a four-time Georgia Writer of the Year, as well as an honored emeritus professor of cardiology at the Emory University School of Medicine. The Mississippi-born Stone came to poetry before medicine, having edited his high school and college literary magazines before taking his medical degree at Washington University of St. Louis. At around that same time, he had joined the Emory Medical School faculty in 1969. Stone attended the Bread Loaf's Writer Conference in Vermont, where he would serve as physician for 3 summers. His first book of poetry, The Smell of Matches, was published by Rutgers University Press in 1972. Widely anthologized, his poems have appeared in such publications as Poetry, The American Scholar, and on and on and on. Repeatedly honored for his teaching at Emory, Stone had given guest lectures at over 150 institutions, including Yale, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Virginia, Tulane, Vanderbilt, Brown, and the Mayo Clinic. In 1992, Governor Zell Miller presented him with the Governor's Award in Humanity. Stone died of cancer in Atlanta on November 6, 2008. Wow. Pretty amazing man. Pretty amazing man. So, his poem, Autopsy in the Form of an Elegy, by John Stone. In the chest, in the heart, was a vessel. Was the pulse, was the art, was the love. Was the clot, small and slow, and the scar that could not know. The rest of you was very nearly perfect. Autopsy in the Form of an Elegy by John Stone, from Music from Apartment 8, published by Louisiana State University Press in 2004, reprinted with permission for the Writer's Almanac. Production credits: host is Garrison Keeler, the writers Betsy Allister, Priscilla Kinter, Heather McPherson, Holly Vanderhaar. Technical director is Thomas Schweitzer. The engineer is Noah Smith. Coordinator Nick Vetter. And permissions were obtained by Kathy Roach. As Garrison Keeler always says, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.